we're going to move into The Rising Storm.
The Rising Storm.
Talk about it, which
crap, this book
was it was a long
book.
But Light of the Jedi was pretty long.
I got through it pretty quick though. Honestly, like the pace kept up.
The pace
because there were 76 chapters. Like it felt like every couple of minutes was like new chapters. Like damn.
I think I was in chapter, I want to say 30 something.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm getting close to the end. I'm almost done with this thing.
Yeah.
And then like I looked, I'm like, I still have 8 hours left.
I know.
or something like that. I was like, geez.
Yep.
There's so much going on right now.
Uh-huh. No, I finished it yesterday, and then I re-listened to a couple parts that I especially liked. I loved this book. This is, I think, my favorite High Republic thing we've done yet. And it has to all go on the back, the broad, strong back of Loden Greatstorm.
Of Loden Great,
Yep.
he was in it for like
I know
2 chapters.
but I know, but like the care and emotion I had for him versus his screen time, if you will, like is so off the charts. Like I was so emotionally invested and so utterly devastated by this book, which that works for me. Like when pages on a screen or words in my ear can elicit that emotion. That's good stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But
the ending of the book, for sure, with like Bell.
I was back and forth. This like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Oh, they're gonna get out. Oh, they're not gonna get out. Oh, they're gonna get out. And then,
well, they play with you so many times.
I know,
right?
I know.
That was one of the things. It's like, and then the needles came out, and he didn't see them.
Dude,
but the Force, the Force saved him. He's okay. And then he fell. Like he fell.
I know.
What do you mean he fell? But this time the Force wasn't there. You're like, oh no, he fell.
Oh,
What's
no,
that mean?
He fell. And then I'm like,
and then Bell's like,
Zell had that problem with jumping in the first book. He'll catch him.
Yeah.
You know?
And then Bell's like, oh, hey man, he's like, all right, point me in the direction of here we go.
Direction of danger.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, it's so good.
And it's so good.
And
And everybody sees him and they're like, yeah, hell yeah. He's gonna go back. He's gonna get better. Oh, you're gonna get revenge, you know. You have all these things, these potentials, and then all of that is leveled.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry I'm at the end of the book, but that's just how, when I think of this book, like,
well,
there's obviously a huge part that goes on for quite some time, and then there's everything else that happens around it. But
so it's so tricky too. I think the same thing happens with reactions of things too, right? Because like when you get to a thing that's a cliffhanger, or you get to the end, and that's where like the big moment happens, like. All right, now when you go into discussion, like that's the freshest thing in your mind too. Is like, well, I just finished this, and this is where I'm at with it. But like, should I go back and talk about all that? But then like, I don't know.
I know.
It's so
I get
tricky.
you. So yeah, we can get started with that. That's why like I have to just qualify. Like I love the book, Loden Greatstorm. That stuff was just
well, he was
fantastic.
so good in Light of the Jedi.
He was.
I liked him in Bell, and I think
Mark
this one,
Thompson's voice for him is so great too. The narrator of the audiobook.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it reminded me of because I forget, but
which is like a little darker, a little more Obi-Wan with a French accent.
He had because he's Twi'lek, right?
Yeah,
I like that the Twi'leks all have the French kind of accent. So
yeah, the Twi'leks get some good stuff in this one.
Sure,
Laura D is also maybe my favorite Nihil.
Nihil,
yeah, I really like her. But yeah, let's I guess start from the beginning, right?
Sure.
The cool thing I liked about this is this idea of the Great Republic Fair.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, we had some stuff before that, but most of the book is about this giant event that they think, like, it's so awesome, nothing bad will happen.
Well, and I thought, like, with some of that, too, one of the big things was bringing in the Togruta, right? Which they were like, they don't get along with the Republic, but they think so highly of the Jedi.
They do.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So the reason for this is kind of like they respect the Jedi. The Jedi are working with the Republic. So let's talk with the Republic.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
And that'll fit when eventually an elder will see this young child that calms a saber-toothed tiger and be like, this is a Jedi.
This is a Jedi.
You know?
Yeah.
That'll work
and that
real well.
must mean a lot to them then if these Jedi are looked at so highly, you know?
Yeah.
So, but no, I think the fair was really a cool idea. I love that they did like this, in like the idea of like a zoo, right? Where it's like, oh, you go over here and here's this exhibit, and here's this exhibit. They had floating islands that were like, like different planets or cities.
It's like
and
a
stuff too.
theme park of the Republic and all the things it offers, but you can find it in one spot.
Yeah. I thought it was a neat idea.
But it also, and as I was reading it, I'm like, this is great because this is setting up so much. It's like, oh my God, they also have Jurassic Park here.
Animals from across the galaxy that we've brought in
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
I'm like, they don't have apex predators and nothing goes wrong. I've seen Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, right? Which definitely comes back later on.
It really does in a really fun way.
Some pretty cool ways.
But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of the Republic Fair also kind of feels really medieval to me as well.
Okay.
Like a big festival that you come and that you have for, like a World's Fair. I don't know if we don't have World's Fairs anymore. We have conventions and stuff, but they don't tend to last like 4 weeks, and they're, centers of scientific discovery and all that type of thing. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, is that okay? We'll have to bring that back up here in a little bit. Then I think Nexus sent us a thing that you were talking about at the very end of the book. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what that looks like.
Great.
So
that fucking thing. Oh, sorry. That's my one F word. PG-13.
No. Well, with talking about towards the beginning of this, one of the things that we haven't really gotten to show yet is the comic book stuff, which has some connections to this.
Yes, it does.
One of which was like in the very first, I think, chapter that had Markion, right?
Markion Row.
Not Marcion. Or however they say it in the
book.
book.
I like the way Mark Thompson says it.
I know, Marcion.
Markion Row.
Markion.
Yeah.
I think is how you say it.
Yep.
But he always says Marcion.
Markion.
But they said about the spider ship in it, and I was like, and then I pictured it because we did the comic book. And I'm like, oh, the spider ship. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
It's good, like, having Avar Kriss in my head. Now that I know what she looks like. Unfortunately, I also think I know what she sounds like. No.
Okay. Dang, that ruined that. The other thing that they had in this too was we mentioned about excited for Hutts in the comic book reading, but they had a mention of talking about the Hutts and how like an alliance with the Hutts is kind of being frowned upon, but might be needed. And I'm very interested to see where that goes because I love the idea of a Hutt alliance because of the Drengir.
Yeah, especially
after what we saw in the comic.
Right.
So, like, I'd like to see how that kind of develops into, well, we're not in favor of the Hutts, but they are an ally compared to the Drengir. Yeah. Like, we should work with them.
Yeah. It was interesting reading the book, going through the book, because, like, the Drengir come up, and the Drengir, for me, are, like, terrifying. The Nihil are bad, but they're not necessarily terrifying to me. It wasn't really until this book that I really felt... literal terrorism from them, but terror from them, in terms of like how far they'll go and how callous they are. But the Drengir are just like these horror characters in Star Wars to the point where like I sometimes feel like, man, this is like too much for me in Star Wars. But but that in itself makes it feel better.
Yeah, they're just coming to devour everything.
Yeah,
like imagine the cicadas came, but they also ate people.
I know, right?
And it's just like that's just what they
do.
No
wonder the Hutts want, like they're slow and giant.
Yeah,
the Drengir are probably like, yes, go to Nal Hutta.
Lots of sustenance.
Any planet with Nal in front of it, we're going there.
Yeah.
Giant stakes, they can't run.
Pretty much.
But the Drengir are such an interesting villain, because they have that element of like a little bit the element of like George Lucas. Some people think George Lucas is a genius simply for the one idea of having all the bad guys or all the like bad guy thugs in his prequel movies be robots, because no one cares if you destroy robots. It's like no one really cares if you cut up trees, like especially if they're trying to eat you.
Sure. Well, and earlier in the book, one of the things I did like was how one of them was killed. It was Ty, which was I believe a new character that we haven't met before until this book.
Very interesting character.
She's the saber for hire. Like, so she like used to be a Jedi at some point or something, and now is kind of like a freelance bounty hunter kind of character. But I thought they were pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and she has just a great story throughout specifically with a new Jedi, not a new Jedi character, but a Jedi character I don't feel like I've gotten to know as well as in this
Elzar Man, which we started the book with him. Which I believe we ended the book with him in Light of the Jedi.
We heard about him
right
in there because he's one of the 3 Jedi Padawans that really hung out the Ron, Harry, Hermione with Avar and Stellan and Elzar. But we didn't want to get to know him, and I felt like this one we got to know him, and he's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like in The Light of the Jedi we ended with him, and he had some kind of scream and vision and that kind of stuff. And then in this book, we kind of start back up with him with some kind of scream and vision and that kind of stuff happening as well. Yeah, and he goes to like the moon of Ashla, and bathes in the waters and sees some terrible visions and stuff, right?
And we do mean Stellan Gios is the one that doesn't appear much in Light of the Jedi. Elzar does.
Okay. Is that what it is? Yeah. Is it Stellan then that does the screen? Not him that does the screen.
No, Stellan is the proper new member of the Jedi Council.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Which I love Mark's voice for him, too.
Yeah, sure. Very proper kind of sounding.
Mm-hmm.
No, Elzar Mann is I don't know. I liked him in this book. I thought he was interesting.
I really liked all of his parts in this.
He had some of my favorite moments in the book, too, I think, which I want to get to. I think the High Republic, it just bodes well for like some of the stuff that we see or read or hear, and I want to talk about a few of those things later. But yeah, Ty. One of my favorite things with her was that she was fighting a Drengir like earlier on in the book. Yeah. There was like these people that like hired her to take out this monster, I think is what it was, and she was going to
the Drengir are spreading throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, so we met them in Into the Dark, and they kind of got released and awoken there a little bit, but then they started awakening, I think, in other places too, or something.
Because they got awoken there, they woke up in other places.
Because they have like a hive mind thing or something, right?
Yeah. And they can literally seed planets.
Yeah. And we've had the comic kind of cover on that a little bit, and this is also putting out that there's still more Drengir out there, and we're watching for them. But she's fighting a Drengir, and she takes it out and like cuts it in half, and it's like, but any little bits can still survive.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was cool because she was like, I'm going to cut it into little pieces, I'm going to hang it over these branches, I'm going to let it dry, and I'm going to make a bonfire. And I was like, man, you got to go through a lot, but that's okay.
You really do have to go through a lot.
Now we know what it takes to kill a Drengir, I guess. So. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Meat.
What'd you think of Bell?
Bell Zettifar in this one?
We had Bell earlier, and throughout. Bell was one of my favorite parts of this book too. Because I loved him in Great Storm and Light of the Jedi.
I was upset about Loden, that he was taken and lost.
I kind of forgot about it because it'd been a little while.
Sure,
but
the
first time we got to Bell and he was talking, I'm like, oh yeah, Great Storm.
But then like Bell was like, oh man, I'm looking forward to like learning with Bell and all that stuff, and then just
he got impaled, right?
Harpooned in the gut, and I'm like, no. But he didn't die.
No, luckily.
But it was in that moment when I first realized how much I actually did like Bell Zettifar.
Right?
It's like, no, don't kill him. There was a lot of, oh my God, they almost died in this book.
There was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's several moments like that I was like, okay.
And that's the great thing about this era is that unless I know more in the Acolyte, I have no idea what's going to happen.
For example,
I know the Nihil won't win.
Sure.
I know that, but I already knew that.
And like now that we've seen Vernestra, you have less worry for her in situations through the book, right?
But dude, this entire book was stress.
Yeah.
Because like all the characters that I really liked were in the most danger.
Mm-hmm.
And also there were times where it's like, and then they died. Next chapter. Oh, they didn't die yet. Okay, thank God.
Yeah, right?
That's what it felt like, at least. Yeah. That's how invested I was. I'm not saying that's what the book did.
Yeah,
that's how it felt like to me.
It would be a moment where, like, Belle got hit with that harpoon and stuff, and then like, it ends that chapter being like, and that was the last thing he thought of before he faded off, And you're like, oh, shit, faded off? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And then you come back, and it's like, Belle, Charhound. He wakes up with him barking behind him, And you're like, what
Ember.
Yeah.
I love fucking
and you're like,
so much.
They're still here. They're still alive.
Yeah, like Ember's like, they called him his anchor.
Yeah.
That's why he keeps him around. He's your anchor. He keeps you weighed down there. I love Ember.
Mm-hmm. No, I do too.
Which is why the end of the book also upset me.
Ember was just defending.
No.
Ember was fine.
He was scared. Started attacking their friends. Poor Ember. Love you. Good girl. And it's just cool to have that reminder of their previous station they were at.
Sure.
That it's from that place. So
I think a big kind of topic, theme of this book is like attachment, which I think is an interesting point for like the way the High Republic Jedi kind of treat things, but like so many are going through, like I feel like Bell's going through like what his attachment is to his master Great Storm. You have Elzar Mann.
He definitely is dealing with grief.
Yeah. Elzar Mann's going through attachments to various people, I feel like, throughout the book.
Various, but I think that he's one of those guys, like, he can't get what he actually wants, so he looks for alternates, but it's never going to fill the void.
Sure, yeah. And I'm trying to remember other ones, too, but I had a few more that I was thinking about. I didn't write everything down, but, like, there's a few moments like that kind of happen with different things with attachments and stuff. But then also, I feel like sometimes that's what makes them stronger and better, too. So it's like a weird balance where I feel like this is like, okay, this is against the Jedi and you shouldn't do this. But let's all get attached so that we can be really strong together. You know, like it's like a weird kind of balance for it.
Well, you're right. I think it is a good theme for it, because especially with Bell Zettifar, because he's being told by all these Jedi, like, hey, you have to move on, you have to give up, rejoice that he's become a member of the cosmic force. You know, Loden's not with us anymore, and you can think about it this way. And Bell's like, I just can't. And you want to be like, well, he's a kid, you know, and he misses his father figure, and that's perfectly fine. You shouldn't like try to like force him to get over that. He'll never get over it if you do that. But the reason he can't get over it is because the Force is like, he's alive.
He's still there. He's talking to an old mummy lady.
Oh, he's talking to an old mummy lady. That was one for me too, because Mark Thompson was doing the voice, but I didn't make the connection until he said it.
Really?
Yep.
I was trying to remember, because that's later in the book. Whenever he's like, "You're who it was," right? Yeah. And whenever he was talking, I'm like, wasn't there like whoever the Path Lady was that was like, you know, this is how we learn about it, and he's just kind of like, what's his name? Markion is just like pretending to be whoever, so that okay, yes, let's do this. You know, like here's the path.
Cousin. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, there's someone there. That's why I told you earlier today. I was like, I need to reread Light of the Jedi. Yeah. Because I think it's been a little while, and like I remember parts, but I don't think I remember all of it sometimes.
And it's gonna be like you're gonna be able to. It's not so brand new for you too. Like you're gonna have an idea of who the characters are. I mean, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, you watched episode 1. Yeah. Were you done?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the Star Wars I know was the ones I knew when I was younger that I watched over and over so many times.
Sure.
And now there's a lot of the newer stuff that I try to make sure I put in my memory banks, but like I haven't watched them hundreds of times like I have like the older movies.
And it's so much easier for me to not retain novels than it is any other form of entertainment.
Sure.
So I'm sure if I reread The Light of the Jedi, there's going to be more that I appreciate than didn't the first time, you know?
Yeah. Well, and especially I think like Acolyte will hold in my head better and Mandalorian will hold in my head better than the books, just because I think I have harder time like picturing what the book is telling me is going on than I do when I just watch it, you know?
Yeah.
What did you think about Des?
Des, I think is how it's said, right?
I think he was a Telordai? He was like a bird race creature thing. But he was like there with Markion.
With Markion, yeah. So he comes from a species that is in itself force sensitive, right?
Yeah. Well, they had a line where they talked about like battling against like 100 crimson blades or something like that. So like it had a line that made me think of like they fought the Sith.
Oh yeah. I guess I didn't think about that, but that could be it.
Because it sounded like they fought these crimson blades, and then like at some point with their force sensitivity that they had to kind of like squash it to not stand out so much.
Sure.
So they kind of like mess with it a little bit, but try not to go too hard with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I like being able to have that third party, like with Marcion and Santeca in the beginning, right?
Was that the old lady?
Yeah,
that was there. Is that her name?
Yeah, Mari Santeca. Is that
okay?
Right?
That might sound right. I don't remember. I don't remember what her name was, but she was there. Like they talk about her having the robes and stuff, and couldn't see what they had, and then had a blaster, and then had this and that, and like what all was under there?
No, like it's interesting because Marcion Ro is like a character that's coded to be completely mysterious, but he's not mysterious to us because we're inside of his head. You know, like if this was a visual television show or movie, I might feel very differently about that character than I do now. But like right now, I like that characters like, you know, like this bird guy. I can't remember what you said his name was.
I think it's Des.
Des. Like the new insights it can give to a character like Marcion Ro, because I myself can't see and I'm also in his head, so I can't like what do criminals think of Batman versus what Batman thinks of himself, you know, that type of thing.
Sure.
Yeah,
I get that. I thought it's interesting to see like him because he's like a follower of him too, right? So that kind of gives you like a different viewpoint than well, this is the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like this guy's following him.
Yeah.
But I thought the species was interesting too, because like he was like a pilot, but he like kind of flies with force sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a moment when they were in their caves and stuff, and he's like, what do you feel? I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. Like, I don't feel anything. And I was just like, interesting how like they have force, but they don't have force too. But they also had like these big blades. And then like I was kind of starting to get attached to the guy and listening to him like he's fighting this creature that pops up.
Wing blades or something.
Yeah, he had wing blades, and like they were fighting that creature that popped up, and they weren't doing well. And then they finally defeated it, and then Markion just killed him, and he was like, "Thank you for serving your purpose. For you're done."
Thank you for serving your purpose.
And I was like, all right.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. I was kind of getting attached to this guy a little bit. So
yeah.
He was the first one in there where I was kind of like, oh man. I wanted to see where his bird guy was gonna go, but I didn't get to. So
You didn't get to.
Okay.
We have a super chat from Caleb Diaz. Thank you, Gonk, for letting us know. The way Stellan reacts to Elzar confessing his struggles with the dark side made me emotional. Support, no judgment. If only Anakin lived in the High Republic era. Yeah,
sure.
No, those two are so important to each other, you know? Like, I should say those three, but they have the added benefit of being, they were raised together.
Yeah.
So they're proxy family in that regard. They're closer than Jedi should be in a way, and that's to their benefit, not to their detriment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like those two's friendship was really cool to see, especially without Avar there.
Do you think that like the Jedi, I don't know, order, religion, like their ideas, like does it just get more strict as time goes on to like what we get in like episode 1 where like they're much more like, you know, he's too old to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
You can't have any attachments, you know, like where they get more strict later on because of like, I don't know, things not working out, or because of like,
I think so.
I think a lot of religions kind of do that in general,
Yeah.
right? Where like you can start a little bit more broad, but like especially when you get like different
just
sects breaking off,
yeah.
right? Like they get much more specific on what they allow and don't
I think
allow.
it's just institutions in general, because you always have that idea of like kids need to make their own mistakes to be able to learn from them. You can't just tell them; they don't learn that way.
Sure.
You know, I think it's kind of the same with Jedi or any institution where, hey, things happen and we've adjusted because they happen, and eventually those adjustments have been around so long that the people that are now current were just born with them, and they don't actually understand why that's there.
It's just that's how it's
just
always
how
been.
it is. But you don't know why it's there. You don't know why it's precious. You don't know why you should fight for that rule to stay there. You
but
know?
Yoda would know.
He would, but Yoda's. I love Yoda, and Yoda can oftentimes say amazing things. But when Anakin comes to him and says, "What do I do? I'm so afraid about losing the ones I love," Yoda says, "Rejoice for losing them. You know, rejoice that they transform into the Force." But that's really easy for someone that has seen maybe thousands or millions of Jedi come and go, as they have these short lives and he doesn't. It's real easy to let people go.
Sure, yeah.
It's not so much for a 22-year-old.
No, I get what you mean.
That was a slave. That literally had nothing.
Yeah.
And the only thing he possesses is his love.
It's when we see that there's like immortal people in other media things that we've watched, those ones are always the ones who like, yeah, it's just death, you know, like people come, people go, but it doesn't mean as much to them because they live so long. Like,
sure.
Yeah, I get you. It's definitely going to be different for these long-living species.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There's another super chat from Nathan.
Super chat.
That says, I'm about 30 minutes behind. Just past the council member talk. Gotta recommend the Living Force novel by John Jackson Miller, all about the Jedi Council.
Yeah, that's the new book that came out, right? I love John Jackson Miller. He was the guy that penned the Knights of the Old Republic comic series with it had some really cool stuff. It was like a story. It was before Knights of the Old Republic, the video game.
Sure.
So you got to see like who Malik was before he became Darth Malik, you know, that type of thing. But John Jackson Miller did that. He's done a lot of Star Wars stuff, and he's always been really good. So that would be cool. The Living Force.
All right.
I think like more of an anthology, small stories about council members, I think is the idea.
That sounds cool. I like learning more about the council members.
Yeah, I believe that was that announced at the last celebration we were at, or it was something like that. But I remember hearing about it, being like, that sounds cool, but it seems like it's been out now. So
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll keep that on the list and maybe catch up to that at some point here.
Eventually.
Another character that I enjoyed, but I think I mainly enjoyed them because of Mark Thompson, was Mantessa, which was like this inventor lady.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were like making an invention. There was a senator, I believe, who was pushing. I kind of related the senator to more of like shoot, I'm blanking. I want to say Typho, but that's the other one. Panaka, right? Where they're pushing like a defense for the Republic more so. And like people are like, we don't need to have all these weapons and defenses and stuff. But I feel like Panaka was in that same kind of boat where he's like, we need to have a better defense in case this stuff ever happens. We can protect our people. I feel like that's what this senator was doing. Senator Toon or something like that, I believe was the name. Which
I think so. From Solace.
It was a Soliston. Yeah. But Mantessa creates like a device and meets up with that senator to try to sell this item to them, and that's where Ty's story kind of brings into Mantessa hired Ty to be a bodyguard essentially on this like shady weapons deal kind of thing. But the thing I liked about Mantessa so much, I think, was that Mark Thompson, every time he read for Mantessa, I just heard like this Dr. Evil, but not quite Dr. Evil, where they'd kind of talk like this. But I don't know. You just have to hear it from Mark Thompson. But I kept hearing like a Dr. Evil. And
I did not make that connection, but I think you've ruined it for me.
For me, I think it made it better. Because every time they showed up.
I think you're right.
Every time they showed up, it's like, particular, you know, like they just, it was just
energy.
It was the way that he delivered it that made me think of Dr. Evil, and it just made it so fun for me.
That's so funny, yeah.
But yeah, they made like a weapon that could like disarm lightsabers. I think it was
like negates energy.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Because like there's a moment where
it turns off everything.
Was it Elzar or Stellan?
That was Stellan.
Almost dies.
Yeah. He's like, and then the lightsaber like goes into his chest and moves around and it gets all hot. No, that didn't happen. But I was like, he's dead. No.
Yeah, stabbed him in the chest. But it was perfect timing to where it was like those stage knives where like you go to stab and they just go into the hilt. So they stabbed and that device turned on and the saber went away. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I almost got him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mantessa was one of mine that I just liked because of the performance, and that's why I think I like Mark Thompson books so much, because like he changes the voices so much. Yeah. There was only one that I had trouble understanding.
Is it the Jedi Archivist?
Orbelin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had trouble understanding.
Well, what I had to do was I had to slow down because I always speed up.
Yeah.
I had to slow it down a lot for him. But once I did, I really enjoyed it. I loved Orbelin. He's one of my favorite new characters.
He was just very, but then also like very mechanical because
and then in the mix of the audiobook, he's at like, I don't know, 2 octaves lower. And it gets missed a little bit when you're reading. Yeah. Or when you're listening, I should say.
But yeah, Orbelin is like a globule.
He's a glob
thing inside a suit.
He's a noble glob.
I don't know. I forget what the race or species or whatever it was, but it was something I've never heard of before in Star Wars.
He has a containment suit for his globiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
you don't want to touch his globiness.
It's like the opposite of Geode, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I suppose
that one's just a big old hard thing, and this guy's a bunch of liquid in a suit.
Yep.
It seemed like.
Yep.
Yeah, and an Ugor. It was almost like Ikor, right?
Ukor, yeah.
An Ukor. But yeah, it was just I don't know. It was a neat character. They had a fight, and this is one of my things I really enjoyed about this book was that this character, I think it was Elzar Mann, and I think it was Stellan, had some real cool Force moments in this book. That like when you watch, like I was trying to picture like if I was watching this on screen, right? Like if this was a movie and I was watching this as a movie, like. This isn't stuff that I've seen Luke Skywalker do. It isn't really too much stuff that I've seen like Anakin and them do. You know, like it's almost to the point of like Darth Sidious picking up the Senate seats and throwing them at Yoda, and you know, like that kind of stuff. Like there's a point when I think it was Stellan
Geos,
who like throws a lamppost and then has it like swinging up in the air, just going crazy and stuff. And I was like, this sounds like a spectacle to see. You know, like these are Jedi like strong in the Force, using their power.
What about Elzar Mann?
Well,
he rode a giant dragon into war.
He did, and then used one of those islands we talked about earlier to crash it into a ship. right? Like that's like some Star Killer kind of stuff, right? Of crashing this, like that was crazy. And then
felt very medieval Jedi.
And then what brought this up was Oberlin. He had been like fighting. Who was it? Was it
Lorna D?
Lorna D. I think it was Lorna D. Was fighting her with like their like artifacts that were all around.
Yeah.
And at one point, just makes like this artifact hurricane, starts sweeping around with all these weapons in it and stuff. And it just sounded so cool, like trying to picture what this would look like in this room, this archive area that they're fighting in.
Yeah.
While he's all being like, "Ooh, that is the scimitars of this and that," and like he's like explaining what the things are.
Yeah.
But like, there's just some really cool spectacles of like force power in this.
Yeah.
That I was like, it's just so fun to see these kind of things. Because it's the height of the Jedi. Like, they should be fairly strong in the Force and well-connected. And it's like when we watch or listen to Light of the Jedi, and there's that moment where, like, every Jedi focused in the galaxy and pushed it just enough so it would miss the sun, right? Like, it's those kind of things are just so cool to be like, this is the Force.
And it also kind of highlighted the absence and how much we really need to have Avar Kriss with us. Because she has that like battle meditation thing going on, you know.
Well, and what's the thing that they have?
They don't
where,
need
like,
to have the comms, but they had no comms in this, and that was most of their problem was they couldn't communicate with each other.
Yeah, but there was like the mantra thing going through people, right?
Yeah.
When like they would connect with everybody.
Yeah.
Even Porter Engle did some cool stuff too.
Porter is awesome.
I love it. Like, wait, is he a master? And like many times over.
Yeah. 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 That dude went Jedi so hard they let him retire.
Yeah.
How often people retire from being a Jedi?
Right? He's a cook now.
Yeah. I keep waiting for like something's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a Porter moment. I know it. It's gonna happen eventually.
Dude,
I'm anticipating.
Dude, when they had that moment where like he like crashed his ship into something and jumped onto Indara's Bell's new like master, jumped onto her wing.
Indara Stokes.
Yeah,
I think right.
And then they all
kept
like
thinking Mariah Stokes.
Mariah Stokes.
Indara Stokes.
But that moment there, they all kind of like. There's a moment where in Indira, they talk about how they sense, but there's no talking, but everyone kind of knows what's happening. And I was just thinking of kind of like the battle meditation thing where everyone kind of gets on the same wavelength of communicating. But then like Bell, I think it was Bell, was like in a moment and trying to save Dennis, I think it was. I don't know why, but Dennis for some reason just was this a funny name to me. Yeah. But it was like, you're not alone. You are not alone. You are not, like they were chanting this, and I felt like that was kind of being heard among all the Jedi, just trying to like, it wasn't like communication, but it was like, we are here and we're all working together, and they were trying to not just tell Jedi,
just
but
being
tell
able to
everybody.
Feel their energy, feel that. Yeah.
And it's those things that have just been like these heightened Force moments that are just like, this is really cool because I don't feel like while episode
those
1
are hard to do in visual mediums.
Yeah.
Like in books, I feel like it's a lot easier to do that type of thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because like in episodes 1, 2, 3, like when it's like, oh, well now we're in the height of the Jedi. Like that's what I always thought, right? Like that's why like this Darth Maul fight's so fun. Seeing like Anakin Obi-Wan fight is so good.
Sure.
As opposed to Anakin Obi-Wan fight in episode 4 where it's like, here's two old guys who have lost some limbs and they haven't fought in a while or something,
The
like,
actors are using spinny, brittle sticks.
Yeah, but like we get to like now we're like, look at these fights. But now I'm like, look at these fights. Like some of these things just get crazy.
The synergy is, I think, what's most exciting about the Jedi of this era.
Yeah,
they don't feel as jaded and they don't feel as independent. They work together all the time. I love it.
Yeah,
I wish a lot of that was in like the Pechinaki Arena scene in episode 2.
Yeah. Where it looks like the Jedi aren't just individually fighting stuff, but like working together to fight things. Yeah. Yeah, that'd have been really cool to have.
Yep.
You talk about giant dragons.
Jurassic Park. They were eating people.
Well, yeah, I guess so, right? Or they were going to if they didn't.
I just feel, I mean, I remember at one point when they're visiting like the enclosure and like one of them like gives like one of the Jedi a dirty look. And I'm like, Jurassic Park, that thing's definitely breaking out at some point.
Where's the goat?
Where's the goat? I don't want to eat the goat. He doesn't want to be fed. He wants to hunt.
But it was a cool moment. Like I loved. I think it was Ty and Elzar, right?
Yeah.
Who summoned them to them and then
I think
calmed their minds.
Who was it that saw him? Was it Indira? It was like And there's Elzar Man riding into battle on the back of a dragon, which is the most Elzar Man thing one can do.
But it was really cool. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, these are the babies.
Yeah.
It's like, what? There's a bigger
Where's
one?
a mama?
No, there's some great stuff with a lot of that. And then like, oh man, Stellan's in trouble, I think it was. So he like jumps off his dragon to go help them.
I think it's just because it's so recent, but the attack on the Republic Fair really felt like Genosha and X-Men to me. I mean, that one's also, sure. I mean, that's more of like an actual like hate attack, right? Genosha, because that's about like, I hate these like people mutants, and thus want to kill them, whereas this is more of a message to the galaxy as a whole, which is what the fair is as well, you know?
Sure.
But it definitely is terrorism in that regard, and it's devastating. Like the entire first third of the book has this like pall over it because you're expecting, like they keep saying like this isn't a good idea. We shouldn't have, you know, like this one senator is gonna be proven right. I know it, and he was. Mm-hmm. But I actually liked that they had that senator. Like, he
his
feels
response,
that way. But you know what else? He's not a fucking dickbag.
Yeah,
you know?
No,
I love that.
He was. So whenever he had that weapon,
the Republic's not super corrupt yet.
Yeah, when the weapon turned on and that weapon was terrible, and he's like, "What are you doing? Turn that off." One, there's radiation everywhere now because of you. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He's like, "You're being irresponsible." Two, I want better defense for the Republic, but that doesn't mean I'm against the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like he responded really well, and then they used him later on to try to help capture the Nihil, and he seemed very reasonable. Where it's like, I'll get the votes one day, but until then, I'm gonna work with the Republic and the Jedi and the Chancellor. The best I can.
I mean, it might just be that you know we're in the middle of an election cycle, but I was just so like, that's nice, like. People that are on the same side but divided politically that can still work together. Oh,
right?
Wow. What a great fantasy there is in this sci-fi book.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be like, okay, what's my opinion on this? I don't really have an opinion. What's that side's opinion? That? Okay, I'll vote the other way.
Yeah,
you know?
right?
It doesn't have to be like it's always against them.
I know, which only serves the people in power.
So, but yeah, I enjoyed that part of that character actually having like reasonable responses to things and not just being like, yes, this is what I need as a weapon to fight the Jedi who are against me.
I felt bad for Lena So in this book because everybody kept telling her like, it's probably not a good idea to do this fair. People were scared, and it's like, no, they need this because they are scared.
I see. I was feeling really bad for her when I thought like Stellan was like there crying on the ground. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that was one of the things where I'm like, it's like, and then she died. Turn the page, you know. Oh, she might not be dead.
Okay. She's still alive, but she's barely.
I guess she was next to that giant hospital. that was the the big ship.
It was cool having Stellan fighting with the Tarragons, whatever
Targons.
the dogs are called.
Big cats.
Cats.
Cat dogs.
Named after Coruscant guard or gods or whatever it was, right?
Yeah. No, that was cool. I actually really liked the Torguta captain of the guard guy, too. He was cool. I liked that time when they slapped hands.
Well, there's like a moment wherever it's like, there's noise coming. What is it? And it's like, oh, it's them.
Yep.
Oh, good. They're still alive. They're coming back to help. It's sweet.
I like that.
And they're like, there was a moment where, and it was that respect for the Jedi, where Stellan was like going to stay. He's like, you guys get out of here. And he steps up to fight with him. He's like, no, I need you to protect those people. I'll hold them back, but defend them with your life. And he's like, all right. Yeah. And it's like those guys don't really like these guys necessarily, but this Jedi they respect enough that they will. Yes,
yeah, that's cool.
And I was like, that's just a really cool moment.
Yep.
And I would listen to Stellan. And then like it's like, go puppies. Oh, go ahead. All right. And with them, he might just survive this. You know, that was such a cool moment. I like that.
Yeah, I didn't want to see her die in front of her son and all that stuff, but thankfully she's still alive.
Yeah.
Just not in great shape. But I love because there was a part of me that was like, will someone die? And then.
Well, you shouldn't wish that, Eric.
I know.
I mean, lots of people died.
I know.
Right? Like,
they kept bringing people back from the brink and bringing people out the brink, and I kept thinking, okay, that means someone's dying, and it's going to be devastating. But by the time I got to the end and the loading stuff was happening, I kind of just, like, forgot about it. And I was like, they're going to get him back, and Zoe's going to have him back, and they're going to be fitting, and they're going to go get ice cream, and we're going to have a great time, you know? And then it didn't happen.
So you were like Belle.
Yep.
Oh, he's right there.
I was like Belle. I was like, the force has rewarded this kid. Yay!
Well, before we get to the end, I guess, and talk about a lot of that kind of stuff, because there's some things with that and with, I keep trying to think about the name, Markion. Every time I get to it, I'm like, wait, how do I say it? Markion. Like his story in this is a lot of like collecting and trying to prove his dominance over the Nihil, I feel like. Whereas Pan, I think was the name of like
Eva, something like that. Yeah.
It's like this rival Nihil who's like kind of showboating his way, and
it's the same species as that huge guy from Maz Kanata's cantina. That's like with the chick. He's like sitting on a chair.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's the same species as him.
But he's they do an early attack on
and the Night Sister, of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. The what was that ship called? The Innovator.
The Innovator, which
right?
is the new big ship. Research vessel.
Yeah, science vessel. And has like I think they're doing Bacta and that kind of stuff on it, right? So because they put Bell in a thing to save him, which worked real quick. He was impaled, and later on he's doing all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, he is.
That's some good stuff in there.
I know.
We need some of that.
We need some of that for loading.
Yeah. Maybe.
Just saying, don't touch him. He's all dried out. Maybe throw him in some Bacta. Maybe he'll be okay.
Maybe send him next to Geode.
I'm still depressed.
But yeah, his story I thought was interesting. I like getting through, like seeing his difficulty of handling the Nihil, but also he's a little ruthless, but also his voice is just. Sometimes I think he should be a little bit more louder, and he's usually not. But there was one time that he did get loud, and I was like, oh man, that was a cool little moment. You know, I like that. He definitely Nihil.
He has his new helmet in this one, right? Which is like its big giant red light on it. So when he looks at you, it's like a little annoying.
Is that the same one that like kills a guy?
Right? Yeah.
He's like, here, hold this.
No, yeah. That he had that different helmet in the comic book that we just had, right? And then he also gets an artifact in that comic book that comes into play here, which is the thing that summons, right?
3 pieces that he was looking for, right?
So again, we'll have those comics up at some point here. Soon, but yeah, there's some cool stuff in there that's like, oh, interesting.
That's where this goes, yeah. Which there were bird people in that. I think they were different bird people, though.
Different bird people.
But yeah, I thought his story was interesting, and I think we got more of him in this than we did in, I think even in Light of the Jedi. I think Light of the Jedi was focused a lot more on the Jedi and the issues and stuff, and the Nihil were very mysterious, I feel like, in Light, whereas here we get a lot more of them, which I think is appropriate with the Rising Storm and the Tempest and the all the themes that they have.
They're not the Nihil themselves aren't necessarily the deepest villains. You know, they're Vikings, they're marauders. They take because they can.
Sure.
But Markion is much more layered. And Lorna D, honestly, I think, especially in this one with the whole way she played Pan.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll go there and we'll take care of that stuff.
I bought
and then we'll come back.
I bought that hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, too. I did too. And then he gets there and he's like, "Where is she?"
Yeah, and not for nothing, but she can go toe to toe with a Jedi.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, she fought against Orbelin quite well with the artifact that was made of some kind of wood.
And Stellan too, right? Didn't she fight Stellan? Lorna D? I can't remember now. Maybe not.
Which part?
Towards the end.
I remember Ty fighting Stellan.
Okay. Oh, maybe it was.
I remember that happening.
Okay,
but I might misremember if she might have fought Stellan.
Look, that attack on the fair was 2/3 of the book.
It was a lot, yeah.
Yeah,
it was a big part of it.
Yeah.
No, and that's one of the best things too, with all the moments of the Jedi trying to save people, which are the parts that you want to hear about the Jedi saving and being heroes and all that kind of stuff, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And then Bell's connection back into the Force when he's like lifting that heavy stuff and trying to move it out of the way when he's been trying to. I thought that was an interesting story too, where like they shed light about him like trying to repress the Force from himself because he doesn't want to connect to it because he's afraid of how much hurt he's going to have from losing Greatstorm,
losing Loden. Yeah.
So, real quick, a few fun like mentions that happen in the book. We have a little bit of conversation involving Poof at one point in this book. Which we mentioned him in the Jedi Council.
Ariel Poof, yep.
We also had a conversation with, we mentioned this earlier too, the younger Master Sunube.
Yeah.
And they talk about how his voice is much younger, or sounds young. So I thought that was cool to have him showing up in that as well.
We had Yoda at one point, and Mark Thompson went the more Clone Wars Yoda, which I was happy for.
And I thought...
Super chat. Thank you, Gonk.
Olochku?
Olochku, $10 or pounds maybe?
Euros.
Euros. What I love about Markion is that he's not above fear. Like when he's confronted by the other Tempest runners, he is afraid and knows that one misstep will result in his death. It's very unlike Palpatine. I agree. Yeah, he's the best part of the Nihil.
Yeah, for sure he is.
Yeah, because I love it. Like he wants to come across as powerful, but we know he's not. He is smart. You know, so when you put him up against Pan, who is nothing but power, it makes for interesting things.
Yeah.
You have him like almost like taking on force powers into himself, but it's really tricks and trickery.
Sure.
You know, like
his facing against Pan, where he moves a saber and he's like, I didn't know he could move so fast.
Yeah.
But then he knew he would deflect, which then opened him up for the real attack. And he's like, that's why you're so short-sighted.
Yeah.
But he knows the danger he's in, but he tries to plan around that too and does pretty well with it.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas like Palpatine still plans very well too, but I don't think Palpatine ever fears he's in danger. Maybe in danger of being discovered at different times.
Sure.
But I don't think he ever fears for himself.
I don't think so. And if he does, he controls it.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to control that. Like fear is, it's what Darth Maul says. It's an ally. He can use that.
Eric, so when someone says, may the Force be with you, what are you supposed to say back to them?
Well, the Catholic in me wants to say, and also with you.
Yeah. I remember us talking about that at one point, and it was something about that. I was like, that always sounds very like Catholic.
Yeah,
but
and with you.
In this,
it's generally the last thing you say. You know, there's no response.
Yeah, just may the
and
Force
with you,
be
my
you.
friend. Something like that, maybe.
I just thought it was funny. There was a point in this, and it made me think of that conversation where, was it Bell? Someone saved someone. And they said to them, may the Force be with you. And then they looked back at them and said, and also with you. Is that the right thing to say? I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's fine. Like, there was like a moment of that on there as well. I don't know. I thought about that too. And I thought it was funny. And I was like, what are you supposed to say in those moments? Like, I don't know. That's good enough to me.
Yeah. I mean, thank you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
You know, like if someone says they're going to pray for you, but you're not a person that prays, you can be like, thanks. I understand the sentiment that you're giving off. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And with you, yeah. Like, that's kind of the thing that I've heard a lot of people say. I just thought it was funny that they kind of like, is that right? I
don't know. Grant Smith has a cool observation. If Palpatine is a chess master, I see Markion as a skilled poker player.
Using bluffs when he should.
Yeah. And bluffs they're only full of tension if, like, hey, this isn't going to work out. Palpatine, you feel like, oh, it's going to work out for him, generally, you know, if he can prepare. But Markion is more about, I don't know. I feel like Palpatine doesn't care about how his strength is perceived. I mean, that's why he's so good at deceiving and being in front of you. But Markion is obsessed with how he's perceived. You know, he wants to be seen as powerful.
He wants to be followed by everyone here, and he wants. Yeah, I get what you mean.
So yeah, they're very different. Good point.
I talked about that already. I liked Elzar Mann in this a lot. I said that before. I thought like his being hard on himself a little bit. I understood, but also like maybe going a little too hard. Like he thought he stopped what terrible things he saw in his vision from Valo happening when they stopped Dr. Evil, Mancia, from the weapon and all that kind of stuff too. And then he's so hard on himself because he was with a woman when things started going real bad. And then later on, he goes back and he's like, "Hey, you know, sorry about this." Da da da. She goes, "Well, we're not gonna do it again."
Yeah.
He's like, "What? You know, like there was like a.
What do you mean?
Yeah. It was just all these things kind of on top of each other constantly, and I don't know. I felt for him a little bit about how hard he was on himself, and like him reaching the dark side. Even Ty's like, that's some dark side stuff you just did. Well, so I don't know about that.
It's also why I think Ty is able to kind of like get closer to him a little bit, right? Like they can relate in that way where both of them aren't necessarily perfect Jedi.
Yeah, sure.
You know.
Yeah, there's reasons that she's not in the order. I assume we don't know too much, but at some point I figure we'll learn more. But yeah, I thought Elzar Mann, like he's like a interesting kind of flawed Jedi in a way, but I like that. Like, he's trying to do his best, but sometimes
he might be the most interesting of the High Republic right now. I mean,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
All right, at the very least, he's he's not surface level at all.
Sure. This is much more.
You can't really describe him in one sentence, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like you can some others.
He's Master Man.
Master Man.
Master Man.
Master Man. Yeah, I just can't stop thinking about the devastation of the ending of the book, Aaron.
All right, let me make sure there's nothing else here that was...
What it did to me? You want to talk about Acolyte, too?
Yeah.
4:30.
Yeah, all right. All right, go to the end. Oh, the last thing I had.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about the ending of the book.
Uh-huh.
There was a mention that I caught, and I have no idea what it was, and I'm just really curious. But they had some kind of comment. I can't remember what it was, but they talked about the Mystic Nine. And I thought about, like, Mystic Force and Power Rangers and stuff, and I was just like, what's the Mystic Nine?
What's the Mystic Nine?
So there was just a mention of that. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I'm hoping that maybe it's a High Republic thing that we get into later, or maybe it's an Old Republic thing we find out. And
I don't remember. I don't know anything about it, so...
There was just something about Mystic Nine. I wrote Mystic Nine and a question mark, and I was like, I want to know what the Mystic Nine is.
Okay.
Because my mind went to Mystic Force, which was a Power Ranger thing, and I was like, man, what if it was like a cool Mystic Nine Power Ranger group of Jedi or something? But
hey, we had Bulbasaur.
We did have a Bulbasaur. That's true.
So it's not outside the realm of possibility.
That's true. But, yeah, that was my last thing I really had that I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the end of the book.
Marchion brings out his...
Well, he put all his artifacts together, right?
He puts his artifacts together, and he summons his super weapon.
Which I don't really understand what it was exactly.
It's called the Leveler.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be like a giant laser or something. But then they talked about how it looked like an animal, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, am I supposed to, like, is this like a visually the way it moves and stuff? Is this like...
We have an image of it that popped up.
Yeah, apparently there's an image, and I didn't know there was an image.
But it seems to have some type of, there's psychic attacks involved, right? Like, Zell was completely... incapacitated.
Elzar?
Well, Elzar, yeah, but I was talking about Zell, like when they find Zell and then they find Loden. Like Zell talks about how like he can't remember who he is. He loses his name. He loses all this stuff when this thing appears, right? Doesn't he?
Who?
Who am I saying? Zell Bettifar.
Bell Zettifar?
Zell Bettifar.
Okay. Bell
Zettifar.
Okay. I was like, wait, who do you want?
Dyslexia. No, but he talks about like when the lever comes on the scene, like it's like I don't know, it's like this devastating mental attack almost. It's like Xavier attacked him.
And then he's like laying there.
Wasn't cool about it.
Yeah, he screamed, right? Because he couldn't. I remember. I know what you're talking about. Because he just screamed and fell and didn't like that was all.
So there seems to be something like that going on with it, where it just like maybe like the Nazgul, like when the Nazgul come, they just like people like men will just look up and scream in Lord of the Rings just out of sheer terror, because that's just the effect they have.
Sure.
So it does that, but also it petrifies you, sucks all your juices out.
It does something.
What did it do to Loden?
I don't know if it like encased him in like a weird rock thing. So like we just have was it Stellan, I think, that walked up? Because I think Indira was there, and he's like, come, you have to see Bell. He's in trouble, you know? And it's like, I thought I saw terrible things on Valo. And he comes up, and, like, Bell's there crying.
Yeah.
And Ember is barking and growling and stuff.
Oh, it broke my heart so much.
And then you get a little further, and it sounded like there's, like, a statue of
a rock.
Loden.
They called it a rock at one point.
Like a rock, encasing around, like, I don't know, like carbonite maybe? I don't know what exactly
I know
it's
the
like.
shape of that rock. Ugh, devastating. Loden is this husk, and then you just do one little touch, and he just fades away. And that is how the book ended. I thought there would be some more. But no.
And then right before that, too, is when you had Elzar, I think it was Elzar Man who, like, crashed.
Yeah,
like, he nosedived because around the same time they fired and stuff, too. So, like, that kind of goes with that psychic attack, too, I guess, right? Because he dove into a vision.
Yeah, he goes right back into his vision that he thought it was all over, but really it has all begun, as Marchion likes to say.
So I don't know. I don't know what this thing is. Yeah, Stellan Gios was afraid. Yeah, that was the line I think that they ended the book with.
Stellan Gios was afraid, yeah.
Yeah, Jedi shouldn't feel fear. Right? Like, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah. No, it was a shock of an end of a book. And it was a shock of a book, honestly. Like I know the whole point was like it shouldn't be shocking. You should have expected this to happen, but I was still shocked as it happened.
Yeah.
But again, it might be those lingering feelings from Genosha from X-Men. That's how much that cartoon affected me.
I kept waiting for something to happen with Loden because like they played that where it's like, okay, he gets out of this. Yeah. Okay, what's he gonna do now? Okay, he gets out of this. And okay, what's he gonna do now? And then like now Markion's here.
I did too.
And it's
but
like
my
needles, not needles,
high.
falling, not falling. Fighting. You going without me? Like there's all these different things, and I was like, okay.
See, I thought once the needle thing happened, I'm like, oh, I think he's gonna be safe. Actually, I think he is gonna be. But that was so much of my hope. Like I wanted it to happen. I wanted him to go home.
I know. And you have Bell. He's like, it's going to be just like it was before. Me and my master. Yeah. We're going to save
everything. We're
going to
get him cool Robot Leku. I'm like, Robot Leku? Sweet. Well, dude, you could put so many cool things in there.
Why do you even need a Robot Leku? Why do you need that?
I don't know. Like, maybe he can't ride a bicycle anymore.
It keeps balance and stuff? Maybe.
I don't know. They communicate with them and stuff.
But yeah.
You can keep, like, salt and pepper, in each one of them.
And just shake your Leku.
And just throw it over and it's there,
Yeah, but now you're just filling salt and pepper.
Dude, I made that up in a second. You don't think I can think of 10 more great things to use for... I want to make them. I can have robotic Leku.
You're just going to make it like one of those helmets that hold like your drinks.
That'd be kind of funny.
You just...
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The Leveler came out, leveled the story, and Mark Thompson was so disappointed he just stopped reading. That's what it felt like to me. It was like... Stellan Gios was afraid. And then it's just like...
I'm done.
This has been an Audible production. No!
Yeah, I know. It just ended where I didn't think it was going to end. And there was a part where I thought, like, oh, man, we're getting to the end. Yeah. And then it just kept going for much longer. And I was like, oh, we're not at the end yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, now I want more.
Yep. But yeah, my favorite High Republic book so far. And we're going to be jumping into another book.
The next one, I believe, is another High Republic. And I do believe this one runs semi-adjacent to the Rising Storm, which is called The Race to a Tower.
Crash Point Tower.
Crash Point Tower. I forgot the name of the tower.
Witch Mountain.
Witch Mountain.
Yeah, so we're going to be reading that. It is I think like a junior novel.
It's a shorter novel.
Shorter novel, so it's not as much of a time commitment as some of the larger books. So that will be our book for next Badonkagonk.
Yes, which will be on July 18th.
July 18th? Well, Aaron, that's like the day after the Acolyte finale.
Yes, Acolyte finale is that same week. So we'll be able to talk about how all of Acolyte comes together at the end of... or at the end of the show, I guess, but during that Badonkagonk. And I think that we can take questions on, like, Acolyte as a whole. Right now, we can get in some Acolyte stuff, but we've only had, like, half the show so far.
We have. Yeah.
So, like, there's still a lot of things that we could get answered, a lot of things that can come to us and be like, okay, this is how this works and how it fits. But some things we still have questions on. But I'll be very excited to, like, what questions do we have that are mysteries we want to see in the future of like High Republic and Acolyte or whatever they want to do, but also like what has been answered and what new things have we gained in the lore.
Sure. Well, Olichku with the $5, what did you say those were?
I think it's euros.
€5. When they started the High Republic initiative, they asked themselves the question, what scares the Jedi? So if we're asking, well, what's going to be happening next, that's probably a good avenue to go down. What does scare the Jedi?
Man, I don't know. Losing other Jedi. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't have attachment, but, Jedi have attachments to other Jedi. Like that happens.
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. Especially between masters and apprentices.
Yeah. If it didn't, then whenever they lost one and they were going to burn them into a crisp like they do, no one would be there.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be an honor ceremony.
Yep. They'd be like, oh, shame.
Well, all right.
Anyway.
Next one.
They just walk out.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
No. So, like, there's definitely connections between them.
I mean, what does, just like Fabicino says, what does Palpatine say the Jedi are afraid of? Losing their power. Which.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Losing their power, that's right.